Okay, now we'll move to the open forum for public comment portion of the meeting where the public is invited to make a issue-oriented comment on something that's not on the committee of the whole. So if you have something to talk about for Maplewood, we'll get to that shortly. But is there anybody else that would like to address the committee of the whole on anything other than Maplewood this evening? Any other comments besides Maplewood? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment at 6:35. I'll turn it over to Brian. We'll get started on Maplewood.
Thank you, Mayor. My presentation this evening will be very brief. Just wanted to provide a brief overview, review for those members of the public that are here as far as how we got to the point where we're at in this process regarding the Maplewood property, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Taylor to provide an overview of the proposed concept plan, which is in your packets for review this evening. Again, the purpose of tonight's discussion is, again, to review process for how we got to the where we are at today, steps involved in those dates. Developer will present this concept plan, and then purposes to provide feedback on the plan for potential future refinement to come back for another public meeting or to go through the zoning process. Steps or dates that have taken place thus far in the process are kind of summarized in the slide. Again, back in May, the school district submitted a request for, or advertised a request for bids on the property. And those bids were due at the early July. The District 26 board selected a preferred developer in mid-July, and then that Mr. Taylor was introduced to the village board back in August and briefly discussed the plan that evening. This evening, Mr. Taylor has responded to the comments that he heard at that August 22nd meeting, has developed a concept plan as far as his first look at the property, as far as what he envisions for the site, and is seeking feedback this evening from members of the village board and public on potential concerns or issues that there may be regarding that proposed plan. One thing I do want to highlight, the village has put on our website information or update page that will be updated on a regular basis as information occurs regarding the property. It is on our main page. If you go to caryillinois.com, under the Community Development Department link, there is a link for the Maplewood School property updates. It's also, we have an update page there for Meyer and Lafarge property. Similar information is provided there on a regular basis and will be updated following tonight's meeting with additional information and plans as presented this evening. So with that, I'll actually turn it over to Mr. Taylor to provide his overview of the project this evening as is seeking. Staff obviously will still be here to answer any questions that the board may have or of the developer, and then staff as well. But with that, I'll invite Mr. Taylor up and address the board.
I think, too, before Mr. Taylor starts, I just wanted to say I want the board to focus on, when he reviews his plan here, focus on things that you like with the plan. If there's things that you don't like with the plan, things that you think that can be improved with the plan here. This is the kind of feedback I think that's important at this step here to provide to the developer. So.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow trustees. You did a nice job, Brian. I was trying to remember what the date was that I last appeared before you, but it was sometime in August. And what I did is I presented to you at that time a copy of the master plan. I thought it would be a great starting point, and I think we spent quite a bit of time talking about different comments, different concerns each one of you had. And I made pretty good notes, and I had a couple of people with me that kind of refreshed me on a few of the items that I overlooked and forgot. And what I've done is I've put together my version, and part of this plan is I looked at the master plan or concept plan that you have on record, and basically what I've looked at is, once I studied that and got your input, I put together my version of what I would like to bring before you. But what I want to do is I don't really, and I don't think most of the people in the audience are even probably aware of this. This is not a public hearing. And what I want to do, and what I think is so nice about this, is if we could get that dialogue going, my goal is to try to get the input and get all of this information worked out with you on some type of a plan that would both sides feel comfortable with, and I can go to a public hearing. And you want to know when we have that public hearing, I would like it to be very quiet, informal, and assuming I bring in everything that I've learned from you people during this discussion. Now, I don't know if I can be successful at that, but if I could, I'd like to kind of show you my version of how I see that plan going together based on the input I got from you at the last meeting. I don't know, can you bring that up, Ryan? Now, I don't know, some of you are going to have to help me. Would it be better if I went over there and pointed it, or is there a way that I can do it here? I think I'd almost prefer to go over to the board if I could, because then I can.
You can take that microphone
If
with you.
he uses his mouse to go over it, would that be able to, for people to see online what he's doing too? Okay.
Pardon?
Right.
What I have here, and for some of you, it might be kind of hard to follow, and if you don't understand it,
That's probably.
when I get done talking, raise your hand so I can clarify it. But what I did here is, this is a survey that we had of the property. In that survey, basically, you'll see the ball field. It pretty much shows the existing conditions out there, and we did a land plan over it. And of course, if it was up to me, I probably would have done it on a clean piece of paper without showing the underlying the ball field and the school and what have you. But I think when we get into the discussion this evening, it might prove beneficial when we start getting into very particular things. But what I did do is, if you follow this, I have 5 4-story apartment buildings that at the very north end of the property, which back up to the railroad tracks and right next to the parking lot. And I've got the 4 along here, and then I brought another one just south of the parking lot of the 4-story buildings. I want it to be, and what my goal is with these 4-story buildings, I'm going to have parking on them, and they'll probably be 3-story and with parking. And I'm not sure, I can't tell you this evening if it'll be underground or above ground. I'm not that far into the project yet, so you'll kind of have to bear with me on some of that. After I get done with the 4 or 5 apartment buildings, or I think a technical term I should use is multifamily. And if you look at the master plan, I think it was called multifamily. And the reason for that is some of these will be apartments. These 3 will definitely be apartments. There's a very good chance that these 2 units over here, the furthest to the south, may be condominiums. And part of that reason is I want to be able to do 2 things. I want to have rentals for everybody in the village area in this area. And secondly, I want to be able to have for sale units if someone wants to buy a unit and live in it. And I think the attraction for something like this is, because of my age and what I've experienced, is I want to be able to offer something that's as affordable as you possibly can with a minimum amount of steps, or in the perfect world, none on the things. And that's the reason for the apartment buildings here. South of that, and the balance of the property, it's 82 townhouse units. And I'll show you the designs and the exteriors of those after I get done with this. But we have a combination of 82 townhouses, and I'm going to show you the elevations of them. And it's 2 different products we're going to be offering, which I'll describe a little later. Along Krantz Avenue and on the master plan, if you look, there was a open space, and I just followed that open space. I retained that. Pretty much in the same configuration that was shown, and it'll be basically right along Krantz Avenue, pretty much as when I brought that concept plan or the master plan, but in the same identical location. And I think that pretty much covers the design. The one thing that you should know, and if I slip up here, you can kind of correct me on it. part of this, the road configuration tied into Krantz Avenue in the same locations. But one of the things that I'm not here to discuss this evening, but will come into play is ultimately, if we get together on a plan for this property, I'm going to be doing a traffic study. And part of that traffic study is going to be, there's a road up here that will be basically, ultimately, to the best of my knowledge, extended out to Cary Algonquin Road. And I think a lot of that traffic that comes from this project will basically go out on Cary Algonquin Road. But that's not something I can discuss tonight because I'm not a traffic consultant. And at the appropriate time, I'll bring one in that can carry on a very intelligent conversation with you. If I could, Brian, could we go to the next one? As I mentioned, I was proposing 2 products for townhouses. And one basically will be the typical 3-story townhouse, which pretty much relates to the younger generation. And if you look at this, it's going to have a fair number of steps. You'll come in on grade to the living area. The materials here on this would be all 100% maintenance free. It would be what I call a hardy product. It's a cement board free. And anything we build would basically be, in the perfect world, you wouldn't have to paint, or the association won't have any maintenance fees for probably 30 to 40 years. This is the product that I'm presenting basically for what I call the younger, I guess, millennials. Trying to think of the right term that I should be using, is product A. And then the second product, which is more of the traditional townhouse. And that product basically is one of those that you'll walk right in on grade. And basically what we will be offering are the typical living area on the first floor and 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms on the second floor. We will also be offering a master down, so you can have everything on the living floor. And of course, if you have guests, you will have the second floor, so we'll have a master bedroom on the first floor and at least 2 bedrooms available on the third floor. Next.
Patrick, could I ask you, are those product A and B, the condo and townhomes, are those rental units or are those
No.
owner occupied?
Thank you. The only thing that's going to be rentals will be what I call the multifamilies, the apartments that I talked to, which were the units that backed up to the tracks. Mm-hmm. And there was 5, and what there was 5 buildings. And to the best of my ability, I'm going to tell you, the way I look at it, it's approximately 50 units in each building. So those 5 units basically would be total about 250 units. There's about 78 townhouses, and the total, this was one of the questions, I think some of the people got frustrated with me last time because I couldn't give any numbers on density, and I didn't really have them at that time. But I've gone through the calculations, and the total of this comes out to about 322 units on this plan. For what it's worth, and I know somebody asked me last time on that comprehensive plan, how many units are there? Well, you know, it's very difficult to answer that, but in my opinion, when I went through using the same math that I used to come up with the 322 units, it was about 125 to 150 units higher. So from where I started, from my perspective, basically, I have probably dropped the density about 125 to 150 units from the plan that I came before you for approximately a month ago. The last one, Brian, was the apartments. And the units that are going to be the rentals that we're talking about here, which are the 5 buildings that are, 3 of them which are along the tracks, and then there's 2 of them that come around the side and just south of that. This would be the exterior, a kind of representative of what those 5 buildings would look like. Again, this is hardy siding, which is a maintenance-free product, basically, so I don't want to have, it's going to be our luxury apartments They're going to range basically anywhere from about 600 square feet. I'm not going to put a cap on it, but on paper, it comes out to about 11 or 1,200 square feet. And if the market goes the way I think it is, I think there may be a market for some of those people that want to even increase the square footage of those apartments by 200 to 300 square feet. But I don't know that at this time. I think that pretty much concludes my version of the revised comprehensive plan that I presented to you, the board members, approximately a month ago. I don't know if you would like me to go back to the beginning, if you have some questions, but I'm willing to answer them.
So are you saying
And
that-
anybody-
I have a question here, Patrick. So on this building here, are you proposing then parking below it, below grade
Thank
level?
you. Thank you. This building that I'm showing here is a 3-story building, and it's actually going to be built with 4 stories. But the first floor will be underground parking. There will be parking on that underneath, on those units. It's kind of hard to tell if you look at this elevation and that plan, but there is going to be parking underneath it. This shows a 3-story, and I want to make it very clear, I'm not proposing 3 stories. They are 4-story buildings. It is a 4-story building, but the first story is actually for parking.
So are you looking at the roof line there? Is that the 4th story or is I don't understand what you
No,
mean by
but
4th story.
if I had the time to put it together, I would have raised this up 1 more story, and I'd have had the same look here, but it would be for parking. The parking would be right here. The first floor would be parking.
Okay, because I know the grade over there goes
Yeah,
down
it
quite a
is-
bit
you
in
should
back
raise that up about 10 feet.
in terms of flooding issues that might occur in the future. The property is up higher in Krenz Avenue, and then it dips down in the back, and there's been quite a few issues in the past in terms of flooding in the back there. So have you
Yes.
taken that into account?
I met with
Underground parking?
I met with your staff a couple times, and your engineer pointed out to me that there were a lot of engineering issues, and I was trying to tell him that I will sit down and bring my engineer in once I get past the plan. And what I'd like to do, my goal is to try to get this, if we try to discuss and handle all these issues at one time, it's going to be very difficult. And what I was trying to do this evening is just get into the planning stage. If we can get together on the planning stage, then I want to go in to do the preliminary engineering and sit down with your engineer. And basically, in fact, Brian Simmons brought up a few things that he thought were incorrect, minor revisions that I should make on this, which I'm more than willing to do. But I was here this evening, the main thing is just to get your comments on the plan and the exteriors that I presented this evening.
Does the board have any preliminary comments? I could go to public comment and then come back to the board when the public, do you have any?
I just had a question for Brian. Brian, has this been, I mean, I know this is conceptual, but is this actually to our code? Because it looks extremely dense to me. And before we even start talking what this is it even possible?
Yes, it's within our code. So within our Business 1 zoning district, which is our downtown zoning district, allows a density close to what is proposed this evening. I haven't gone through and looked at all setbacks of every development property, but it's close to what our code would allow.
Okay. And we also allow parking on the lower level?
Yes,
Yeah.
you can have internal parking. It's the requirement from a code perspective is you have to provide off-street parking based off the number of units that you're generating. So whether that's structured parking, underground parking, or surface parking, as long as it's provided in the development meets code, then it would be satisfied.
We haven't
Okay.
done I just want to emphasize, though, we haven't done a full zoning review of this and provided them strict comments related to zoning ordinance or dimension of streets, things of that nature. We're more or less looking high level here at this.
Okay.
I certainly want to hear from the public, but do you want to do some comments before and then come back? Do we want to go back and
I'll do
forth?
whatever, I thought maybe I'd give the board a couple minutes.
I've got a couple of things just to maybe bring up that maybe some concerns. Let's start off with something positive. I like the idea that you're calling it Maplewood Station of Care. I like that you're keeping that. So just want to start with that. one of the things that I was, this is going to be hard. It's very hard for our residents. I've lived here a long time too, and my kids, every one of my kids played, and nieces and nephews played over there, so this is a hard pill to swallow just to begin with. But where you're backing up against School Street and back behind her with the other properties that back up there, where you've got the rows of the 9 townhouses, one of the things that you proposed last time was that you were almost looking at townhouses with like a single family, like a 0 lot line where it was just single family instead of attached. You talked about that you thought you'd love to do that. So I'm just curious if that's something you would still consider, because I think that's a great transition from houses already to come, something, I don't know if anyone's seen it over by, off of 3 Oaks Road by Sage YMCA, where they have those 0, almost like a 0 lot line, or they're doing it in Palatine and different things like that.
Let me answer you.
Sure.
It's kind of funny you use that term 0 lot
I don't know if
line.
that's what you use
You
for,
know,
but
But I think, from what I understand, yes, we're not against something like that. I personally, and I think last time, I kind of raised the question, and I don't know if anybody picked up on it. I was trying to say, if everybody hypothetically, and I'm not trying to lead you, but let's assume you said, I like that plan. My question would have been to you, what would your feeling be as a board if I wanted to detach those units? And the problem, it's what I don't have any problem considering that. The issue that I have is there was a question that was raised, is as soon as I detach something, somebody says, automatically thinks of a typical single-family lot. And there isn't a market for that.
Right.
There is a market for taking that townhouse product and detaching it.
right.
And I would seriously consider that. If that's, collectively your thoughts, if you're telling me as a board, would you consider this? I'd go back to the drawing board and put something together and bring it back to you.
How much of the property would you consider that for?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that.
What would you consider for that?
I couldn't tell you at this time, but I would have to sit down and really think that through. But I would think it's got a possibility. What would your attitude be if I told you I wanted to do it on all of it?
I'd be much more in favor of that
Sure.
than apartments.
Okay. Well,
rental.
you've answered, you kind of give me some guidance then.
Right. The other thing is, I'm just going to be quite frank with you, and that's that, I've been riding the train a little bit lately up and down and kind of looking at, a lot of the developments that are right on the train line by the Metro. And I guess I was hoping maybe that you'd use different material that would make it look a little bit, maybe some brick or something. I don't know if that's something you would consider, but I think that's a different look than, I look at these luxury apartments where you're proposing, and to be honest, that doesn't look luxury to me from the outside. So from an architectural standpoint, I think design is really important to fit in with, if you're going, you're going into a nice, an area right now where homes are already there, and we want something to obviously elevate those properties.
On that issue, I don't have a problem sitting down with your planning department. And based on that input, is what I'd like to do. If I could get anything I wanted, if I could have my wish, it would be that you would say, I like this plan, and I'd like to have each one say that, but like in your case, but I want some brick. I'd like you to tell me the different things, like Trustee Kraus mentioned something about the 0 lot lines or whatever. I call them, I don't know what term to call them. I'm going to call them detached townhouses,
Right.
for lack of a better term. And mutually we'll come up with some kind of a term. And I'm not opposed to that. And I guess I'd like to go down the line. There's some things to me that are major items that are what I call threshold issues that would prevent me from doing the project. It isn't going to be the brick, it isn't going to be that type of a discussion. It's something like if someone, as an example, and I shouldn't say it, but someone says, I don't want apartments, I can't do it.
I just said
I mean, there's certain things that are threshold. The items you're bringing up are kind of what I call sound bites. Sound bites I can take care of and work around. I want it to look good too. I wanted to look. I mean, this is one of the last projects I'll be doing, and if you go look at anything we've done, and I've said it before, I want you, if you get a chance, go down to Western Springs, to our Timber Trail, take a look at what we did in that community. Take a look at it, and take a look at what we started with and how it turned out. It's much better than what we presented to the village.
Well, that's just always a risk that the board has to, evaluate. We don't have control once it starts going. We have to make sure from an architectural design standpoint that it's going to fit in.
Yeah, no, I've listened to it, and I'd like to get all of the rest of your
Those are
comments.
just kind of, I'm just spouting off a couple things that I noticed as I went through it.
Okay.
One thing I noticed is that there's no road out to Cary Algonquin other than through Prairie Street. The main issue that I want a road going out to Cary Algonquin is to alleviate that train traffic that comes down Main Street heading out there. I want some access from the parking lots out to Cary Algonquin Road.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for, not some little cul-de-sac roundabouts heading out that way.
I understand. It's a major part of this project.
Yeah, traffic flow is a huge concern.
And by the way, before you go on, one of the reasons that I'm pushing, and just so you can understand where I'm coming from, it may appear that you think I'm pushing on density, but these are the things, the tools I need in order to give you some of those things that I met with your staff, and they made it very clear what I have to do. And I know what they want, and I need these things in order to accomplish that. So, okay.
Any initial questions now, before we go to the public? All right, I'm assuming that everybody here would like to have some sort of a comment time. Since we have a full room here, I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to bring up their concerns, so I'd like to limit the conversation to each person about 3 minutes or so that everybody can get through and have their comments heard. I have a list of people that signed in already. I will call them first, and then I will just go row by row and figure out who wants to go, and we'll move from there if that meets everybody's approval. Mary Rees? I should have known that. I apologize.
Everybody messes it up. I'm Mary Rouse from 421 Krenz. And good evening, everyone. We all know that the Maplewood property must be sold. It will never again be used as a school for District 26 unless they update the building, which would cost millions of dollars. The property must be taken off the tax roll as an expense and put on the tax roll as an income for the village and schools. We all know that we do not want a builder like the last one who tried to build on the property where he started with one number and of only apartments and kept adding to it with every meeting, and who only cared about his bottom line and not the community. We all know that the school building is falling apart before our eyes from age and vandalism. We all know that the property is used by drug dealers day and night and for partying. My family and I have seen the proposed plan for the Maplewood property. As we see it, Mr. Taylor has given us everything we've asked for. He set aside almost 2 acres for a park located on Prairie and Krenz, almost to school. He has planned for owner-occupied townhouses along existing homes and the park with the apartments, and by the park and the apartments and along the railroad tracks and the train parking lot. He has given us a road that goes through Cary Algonquin Road where the proposed Maplewood buildup can exit, and not only into and through our existing subdivision. He has garage parking for the townhouses and under the apartments to help reduce the cars parked throughout the complex. My family's concern is in the demolition of the property due to the asbestos in the plumbing, floors, and who knows where else in the Maplewood building. The building will be required to be completely sealed to remove these contaminants. We wish to make sure that this will be properly done. We can't really complain about the noise, as the property has been making noise from early morning buses and lawnmowers to the clanging of metal bats until dark 7 days a week. But we would encourage a set time to start and end with the heavy equipment. Overall, my family believes that Mr. Taylor has been very open to our suggestions. He has applied them to the plan. We believe that we should move forward with this proposed development, which will bring money to our schools, our village, and increase our current property values. So my family, which lives directly across the street from the board, from Maplewood, encourages the board to vote yes for this development and what Mr. Taylor has proposed.
Thank you. Tim Egan?
Hi, 565 Krenz. I'm looking at this and I don't see really a lot that's very good about it. You're talking about 328 buildings, 600, 700, 800 people, maybe 1,000, 400, 500 cars in a landlocked area. They can't get by either north or east until you go through the neighborhoods. It's just, this is something that really belongs out by Aldi, not in the Maplewood property. Thank you.
Nick Lopez? Nick Lopez, did you want to talk? Okay. Why don't we start over here on this end? Did you have anything that you wanted to say? If you could just please state your name and address for the record, that would help us up at the microphone.
David Stevens, 338 Krenz. I'm going to be right in the corner there, right in front of where that 4-story apartment building is going to be put up, possibly. I think we talked last time about not going so high. You said only along the railroad tracks. Well, that's not along the railroad tracks. That's right by my house. You also talked about maybe 2-story condos. I don't see any of those there either. We got a compromise. I understand that you gave us some stuff and you kind of went kind of crazy on some other stuff. Apartments along the rail tracks, those 3 in the back, okay, we can compromise there. The one right by my house, that's gonna be an eyesore. That's gonna be 4 stories right behind my house. I have no view except for other people's windows. I like the park there. Single family detached townhomes you talked about, I don't see any of those there either. So can we compromise on something here? See if we can do some more on that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
On the buffer, I don't see anything about buffer.
Thank you. Sir, did you have anything you wanted to say to the board?
I'll wait.
Okay, next. Ma'am, do you have anything? Go down. Anybody on this first row here? Start on the second row. Anybody like to make a comment?
That's the retention pond over by my house, and it seems like they're cutting off more of it than there was before, and there wasn't enough
And
before.
Martha, could you come up to the board or the microphone, please? And I got my timer on you.
Okay, time starts now.
Go, right now.
Okay, my name's Martha, School Street. I have this for you. Are you gonna use that since you're taking away half of the retention pond over there that's gonna be filled with water? And since you seem to be taking away part of the retention pond as pictured up there, are you going to use pervious concrete, which is that, which the EPA recommends that for building, if you're not gonna have any retention ponds? If I want waterfront property, I'd like to see palm trees around my house. Do you really think that open space is big enough? Is that for just those people, or is it for our community too?
When you say the open space, you mean along Kranz Avenue?
Yeah, is that for our community, or is that just for your little town?
Well, basically be for the community.
Well, the only thing that looks like, the only thing that small space is going to be good enough is for a couple people singing, holding hands in a circle and singing Kumbaya. It's supposed to be open to everybody, so our neighborhood kids can also play there. And it doesn't even look like enough room for your town. I think we are being thrown under the bus, literally. Our development will be the one to suffer. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. That's okay. Next, George, did you want to say something?
George Ritter, I live on School Street, right at the corner there on Rick Benz. Maplewood Gym was built in 1928 and could be considered a historical landmark. It has 2 bathrooms, a birch gym floor, and the school was built later. I don't know if there's any possibility of saving that. Okay. 3 times over the past 24 years after heavy rain, the baseball fields were a lake. The kids were out there with canoes. Anyone with a basement on school may have been flooded. What are you going to put, where are you going to put a large retention basin to collect the water once they build? They should build a high berm between the houses and school so we don't have to look at these apartments. And there's supposed to be a road back there. They are still planning on putting an access road behind the houses on Norman, behind Whitey's Towing to exit on Carroll Algonquin Road. When they build this road, they will have to take away part of the retention basin on School and Norman, which Martha pointed out. This space in itself is not large enough or deep enough to handle heavy rain, and many times, twice that I've been there, it's been overflowed. On the Maplewood property, and they build these apartments, if there's excessive rain, basements may flood again unless they put a large enough drainage tile or take away the water. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Next, is anybody, the gentleman next to you, sir, did you have anything you wanted to say? No? Deacon Boyce?
Shouldn't be using that title.
It's respect.
Thank you. Compliments to you on the process. Okay? I think this is good that you're communicating as much as you can. Couple of questions, though. In this diagram that you have over on School Street, which of these 2 products were you anticipating putting there?
I haven't decided. I'm open.
Okay.
I'm open, but, you know, just so you understand, this
McAlpine.
trustee over here wanted me to kind of detach those.
Well, I don't disagree with her.
Okay.
But I'm trying to
but
get
if
an idea of what you're looking at.
Forgetting that conversation, if you're taking a look at the 2 plans, you know what I'd ask you? What would you want over there?
I'd like low height,
Well, it'd be product A or product B,
product B,
okay?
in that spot.
Yeah.
Now, you also said now, because what you're doing here is you're transitioning from single family, hopefully to single family.
Yeah.
But you don't want it too high.
That's
It
correct.
gradually go up.
Yeah.
You made a comment about these 5 buildings here. That's a lot of people. That's according to my
250 units,
calculations.
250 units.
According to my calculations, that's 650 cars.
Well, they're apartments, so I'm not a
Okay.
traffic,
All
I've been
right.
around my whole life.
You also, and I like the idea of condos.
Yeah.
If you put condos there, how high would they be?
They would be the same height, 4 stories would be typically the 3 stories with
Okay.
1-story
That-
parking,
that
with
I
the
don't-
parking.
That I don't agree with at all.
But could I say something?
Sure.
On the things? You agree that they should be over here along the tracks. That's
If you're going to put in apartments at
apartments,
all
you gotta, yeah.
over there, I'm not in
So
favor
I'm
of the
transitioning
apartments
with
at
this,
all.
and what I did do is I gave up several of the
I saw
condos in this
those.
area. Did you
I
see that?
saw
I gave
that,
that up
yep.
and basically put the townhouses there.
Right.
And one of the things we're going to do is I am going to basically try to go back and start out with some of the detached town, or whatever term we want to call it.
Right.
In that area and transition. And I will work with you on it, but I put more townhouses, you know, I could have stepped it, I could have done this and stepped this down for some 2-story condos here. I just went right to the townhouses.
Yeah, okay. Well, the height is a big concern because that's what we're going to see from the railroad tracks and from the entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to see. So that, and the condos could be lower. I'm concerned about the parking. People have mentioned the water retention issue. We have issues, you know, in that area with water. So all I can see is that becoming worse, not necessarily for me, but for the new people coming in. So I think that, and I question the density. Question for you, on the density issue, is this a different density than most of the other subdivisions in town? And why is that? If I can
Sure.
ask that.
Well,
It's a different density from a zoning perspective. we have 2 zoning districts that allow for higher density. Or 3 actually. There's the R3 zoning district, which is a multifamily district, and also our B1 and B3R districts, which are business districts that allow residential uses within them as well. And the 2 business districts, which are next to this property, would allow for the higher density.
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're saying that we have a certain density in our neighborhood, and we're going to change or make an exception for the density in an area of our neighborhood that they wouldn't do over in Greenfields, that they wouldn't do anywhere else.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next mover, anything over here? Just 1 second. I'm going to go this way so I don't lose control here. Sir, do you have anything that you wanted to say? Third row back, anybody? Sir?
Bill Rietveld, 551 Krenz, and it's Krenz, Krenz, not Kranz. Just, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Just a little bit. Okay, for the board, is it a foregone conclusion that there will be a road connecting the Metro parking lot to Cary Algonquin once a development gets put in there? Because that is a big tipping point, I would have to think. There are, on Patrick's plan, 328 units as it is. I take it to mean, and I'm not going to assume because we all know what assuming does. I take it to mean that that's your bottom line, that that's probably as low as you will go. Something for consideration, okay? Because I think the lower you go, the better chance you have of getting something put in there, my opinion alone. All right. The zoning density, what I hear from the village people, that is considered part of downtown. The way I look at it, or the way I hear it, the Maplewood property is considered part of downtown. I didn't know I lived that close to downtown. 328 units, and I agree with the deacon, is approximately 600 additional cars, figuring 2 per household. You know, some households might have 3, whatever. So we're talking about another 600 cars, okay? There's only 300 parking lots or parking spaces at the metro station, give or take a few, on that side. So we're going to double the amount of cars in that area already. You know, most go down Main, but there are some that, you know, shoot on over to Krenz. The last topic that I would like to mention is the open space. If a road gets put in next to railroad tracks, it's already been brought up that something's going to happen to that retention pond that's back there already. Patrick has got open space in his plan towards the front, okay, off of Krenz Street, okay? Where is the retention pond going to go that's going to have to be put in there somewhere? I'm not an engineer, all right? But water flows downhill, and that property is already downhill. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time.
Just in time. Thank you. We'll go next.
Paul Gallinera, 575 Grants. Just a couple of things that came to mind speaking about density is when we take a look at the number of people that, you know, assuming you're successful and the real estate takes off like your Holbein and all that, you know, we're talking about, you know, over 600 people, 700 people. which is fine and all, but, that speaks to the additional services that are drawing to that area, like police, fire, and then most importantly, let's say you're drawing families, there's a strong possibility that we could have as many as 300 or more children living in that area, right? So, is our schools, our local school system, Briargate, equipped to handle 300 more children as more families come in there? So just considerations for the board and everybody else to think about as far as when people actually start coming in, what does that look like for the added services, including education? So, thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anybody on there? We'll take you now. Come on up.
Excuse me if I'm nervous. Hello, sir. Thank you for your time. The density just scares the junk out of me. Just, it's absolutely.
Good. Your name and address.
Tim, I'm sorry. Tim Allen, 223 North School. I lived there before that retention pond went in, and it was a quagmire all the time. I mean, I don't want to make a big deal about that. You have to have another way to get the water out. But the number of cars terrifies me. And those 300 kids or 200 kids or 700 cars or 800 cars, where are those kids going to play? Where are those kids going to go on a sunny afternoon? What do you do with that? Are you really going to attract people there where there's no place for their kids to play? I back up to that playground. I take my grandkids there now. Been there 27 years. Where do you put 300 kids? Where are they going to go? They're going to cause trouble or something. I know I would. That's what I would have done. So I just, the numbers are way up.
Well, but let me just interject one thing. We haven't determined what the final development will be, so I don't think 300 children are going to come out of that. So let's not use a number that we can't identify. We're just trying to be, this is kind of a information gathering thing.
I figured 328 units, maybe a child a unit. That sounded fair. But I also understood if you can't have that kind of density, you don't want to play, right? Is that pretty accurate?
I don't think I quite said it that way.
Well, no, I mean, but then it's not feasible for you. I didn't mean it.
No, what I said was, I'll make it again, as I said, I'm open. In fact, the comment that was, one of the comments that was made, would you consider detaching some of the townhouses? And I said, yes, I will. I'm going to lose units. That's going to be less units. But I did say, the one thing I did say that was a critical issue to me were the apartments. So if someone just made a statement that we don't want apartments, I didn't say numbers or anything. I said apartments. And if you don't want apartments, then I've got a problem. That's what
I'm sorry, I misspoke for you.
No, it's fine.
No, I did.
Yeah.
It seems the density just scares me. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start back over here.
There's no one on the third row over here. Did you do the third row over here?
Yeah.
Oh.
Start on this side, sir, in the back next to the restroom. Anybody over there? No. I can't see what the rows are. If anybody could raise their hand if they'd like to comment to the village or to the committee of the whole or the developer, now is your time. Please come on up.
My name's Kristen Fadden, 26 North Prairie Street. I just want to say thank you for thinking of parks or open space, because that was one thing that I talked about last time, just because we don't have a park in our neighborhood whatsoever. Like I said before, my kids are grown. They're not going to use the park like the other kids would be using it. I am very concerned about the apartments that are right there next, basically on the ending part where the bus lot is now, just because there's homes right there. My house is right there. The other thing that I'm very concerned about, of course, is the driving. If they're going to be coming out on Prairie's only a half a block anyways. It's already congested enough, and now that there's parking on both sides of the street, which makes it very difficult for cars to come through. If cars are parked on both sides of the street, you can only get one car down the middle. So if we put another 300, even 100 cars down there would be a lot for that street to take on. It's already hard enough to get out in the morning and in the afternoons when the bus or when the train gets off. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to comment? Please.
Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. So Dan Seibert, 410 West Main Street. I just have a couple questions. What ordinance is in carry for sprinkling the apartment buildings? Will they have to be, maybe you know?
Could you rephrase the question?
Will they have to be sprinkled?
Sprinkle.
Fire
Yeah.
sprinklers.
Fire sprinklers.
Another question, the elevation you had of the back of the apartment complex, what, and you probably don't have plans for this, but where would the air conditioning units go?
The central air.
So central air, but where would the remote condenser units go? Would they be roof mounted? Would they be on the sides? Would they be in the back? Would they be?
Right now, I would assume they'll probably be roof mounted because I put them up with a parapet and then have them concealed.
Okay. All right, I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Yes.
My name is Jim Hirsch. We own the property, the industrial property where they plan on putting the road. I'm sure the people on Norman, I kind of like this plan, no offense, people, just because the train depot lot does not come through our place. I just want to stress to you guys, we need to fix the intersection at Cary Algonquin and where the road is going to go. If you plan on punching it through there, that intersection needs to be lined up. The way you have it drawn, looks like it's your baby because the train depot lot is not running through there. The other thing is this, are these units like low income? Are they the rental units in the apartment? Are they basically fair market rates?
All fair market.
Just
Fair
to.
market rate, luxury apartment.
Okay, and the other thing, a lot of people here are concerned about water. Is your playground area, whatever you want to call it, is that also going to serve as a water detention pond? Or are you putting underground detention in there? Or what is your plan for water detention?
I didn't bring my engineer with me this evening because I was trying to get the plan finalized. Once we get that, once we get a plan kind of that comes together that's within 90% of what we're really going to do, I'll bring in the preliminary plans. But what my engineer is telling me, that the detention will be up in the northwest corner, and it's going to there's going to be a lot of things that we have to take into account. And the major thing is going to be the road that's going to be going all the way out to Cary Algonquin Road. So that detention that's there is going to have to be totally relocated. And that's going to be when we come in with that plan, it's going to have to be a very detailed plan put together by our engineer and approved by the Village of Cary. And my plan has not taken any of that into account. We think we have more than sufficient open space to accommodate it, but the design I haven't put together yet.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to?
Last time.
Yeah, sorry. Got to dance.
I'm easy.
Yeah.
Fran Stanky, 533 Allegiant. Mr. Taylor, you just made a comment. How much of the retention pond are you talking about removing on School and Norman?
I couldn't answer that at this time.
Well,
I
you
can't.
made the comment that you were actually going to have to relocate this entire retention pond?
Yes, and part of that will be after we decide what that final road alignment's going to be that comes all the way through there.
Okay.
Because we're going to have to work, that alignment is going to be done at the same time that we have to redesign that whole detention area. That'll be totally different than what's there right now.
If you remove this retention pond prior to reestablishing it someplace else very quickly, these homes along Norman particularly have flooded out a number of times. When I say flooded out, back door to front door, you're gonna be building a road in here, which is gonna affect all the people up here on Norman. That entire area, Norman and Arthur, typically flood substantially. And when I say the word flood, in the 80s, that water was rushing from their back door to their front door. And if any of you lived in this town before that retention pond, you realize the devastation on Norman. Then they put in the Fox Trails, the 2 retention ponds there. They put in this one, the Village of Cary. And I don't know if we have anyone from Norman here tonight, but I can tell you those homes were a nightmare, almost as bad as they were on the other side of town. So if you take more than a third, not even a third, you're jeopardizing 35 homes. And those people have been there for 35 and 40 years.
When we get that plan put together, we could probably spend a whole evening just talking on engineering.
Well, hopefully you're going to open it up to the public.
Well, of course I am.
Of course.
I'm here, I'm at step 1 right now, just trying to get a general plan. If I get a general plan, I could do a traffic study, and then I will come back with my engineer. And by the way, he was very disappointed. The only reason he wasn't here tonight, he's got a hearing on the south side in the city. So otherwise, my engineer would be here, and he wanted to be here in case some question like that was asked.
Well, the next time we'll find them. Speaking of
Yeah,
that,
we'll
was
get-
there a traffic study done on the corner of School and Friends? Noticing I'm walking all the time. I'm not the only one in our neighborhood that walks for miles.
I'll defer that to our director, Eric Morimoto.
Hi, Eric.
Yes, as part of the, obviously, the discussion from the public and the board, village staff took it upon itself to try and help out the process and do some data collection ahead of time. So the equipment you saw was us, not only at School and Krenz, but several of the streets in and around the neighborhood, so that when Mr. Taylor does initiate his traffic study, that part of the work won't, it's already done with the data collection, so that his engineer then can then start those analyses and not lose that time.
Okay, well, wouldn't that be somewhat premature considering the school buses are still running on Krenz? You're not getting any influx of the parking from the train coming down into our subdivision because they're still going down Main Street or going down Northwest Highway. So really, all you were really monitoring were the school buses.
Well, yeah, we were monitoring as the existing traffic patterns, no, you raised a very good point, and that's exactly the part of the process that will be undertaken when the traffic study is done. What traffic studies do is they take the baseline existing conditions and traffic patterns, and then they insert what the generated traffic would be with the new development. And they also do that for the time point at which the project is built, and then projecting out to the future so that we can properly analyze what the traffic impacts are. So when they do the analysis and when Mr. Taylor's engineers and his team do that work, they'll take that existing conditions, then they'll add in the traffic and then readjust the numbers to account for the right traffic patterns when the other traffic from the parking lot is going on the new roadways, when the school bus traffic is no longer sitting there. All the scenarios you laid out are exactly what we would do. So you could be a traffic engineer.
We'll be watching.
Sure.
Question. What kind of analysis has been done at the bus terminal with the underground tanks? Has the EPA even been involved in that? Those tanks have been underground 45 years that I have lived here. Is that something that's already taken care of?
Yes. There was a study done, actually, the school district, basically, I have a copy of it. If you'd like it, I can give it to, it's a phase 2 study that was done.
My bigger question is, you're going to remove those tanks?
Whatever that study reports, we have to follow step by step.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a proven fact that the ground is not contaminated then?
Well, the report is about 50 pages, so it's not that simple an answer. There's a series of steps you have to go through to remediate it.
Okay. Will the EPA be involved at that point in time?
Yes.
And the water supply to the village of Cary won't be affected at all if there's any kind of leakage when they try to move them?
What I'm going to do, I will, instead of me answering this, I'm not an engineer. And what I would do is when we get to that point with the detention and all of the engineering issues, my engineer will be here and he will take you through step by step. And what I prefer to do is set up
a future meeting, just once we get a plan generally approved, 90% of what we're going to be building, we will put together the preliminary engineering, and we will have a complete discussion, open discussion with everybody that evening, with my engineer here.
Okay.
Not me, him. And he'll have my traffic consultant. Again, I know a little about it, but I'm not a traffic consultant, same thing.
All right. That would be enough for tonight.
I think we were given a copy of the report when the school district originally did some preliminary studies to put it on the market, and I don't remember any reports coming back showing there were any plumes.
If you want it, I can,
tanks.
I'll basically give it to the village manager. Jay. Sure.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Jerry Barrett, 557 Krenz. You said you would contemplate changing the townhomes to connect it to divided townhomes, like space in between. That's going to affect your bottom line, and it's also going to affect the number of units you have. You stated so far that you need this number of units in order to break even or to make money. That's your bottom line. So I'm wondering, how you're going to recoup that if you separate the townhomes, because you're going to lose units when you separate the townhomes. So I'm wondering how that is. And if you're going to recoup it, are you going to go up? Because that's the only way you can go.
No. One of the nice things about detaching those units, and part of the reason, and I haven't done it, I have to do a study on it, but my own experience is the closer I get that to a single family home, and by detaching it I can, I basically have the ability to get more money because we could put on another 200 to 300 square feet on those homes, assuming the buyer wants to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, and this is something I'm very comfortable with, I think the people will. I think the average sale price of that detached unit will be considerably higher than that same townhouse. So that'll offset it. That's one of the things I'm very comfortable with.
Do you have any idea of what you think price point would be? I mean, I don't know if you've gotten to that point. Do you have any idea of what a price point's going to be on any of the units at this point, or not even?
Pretty difficult, but I mean, if you're generally, I would assume those townhouses, we have two products. Mm-hmm. One would probably go to 275 to a little over 300. I think the other product will go from 300 to say 325 or 350. And I think when I detach them, they'll be up at least another $25,000 or $30,000 if I detach those units. I'll have less units.
Mm-hmm. But that's how you'll recoup.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm conservative on the detached number.
Would you consider the apartment building that you have that's kind of butting up off of Prairie, where a couple of people came up in their houses over there, that apartment that's all the way further to the east side? Would you consider making that, seeing that's buffering up to homes, already established homes, would you consider doing townhomes there versus the 4-story condo building?
You know what I'm talking about? I was trying to find out, I don't know what I did with my plan. I'm trying to find out where Prairie is. I didn't.
It's the furthest, I'm just looking at the units the furthest to the east. And the one building.
Next to the parking lot?
Yeah, next to the parking lot. That's kind of like.
I got it, thank you.
I'm just trying to think that, some of the concerns that people had that live over there is that's what they'd have to look at. I'm saying, is there any way that you could adapt and even somehow move something a different way and make those the townhomes, and somehow put an apartment, if you were looking for a multifamily unit, somewhere else?
I don't know if I put them somewhere else, but I think we can lower them.
Okay.
I'd have to take a look at it, and yeah.
I mean, I just think that that's extremely important for people that abut to that, to not have something that's 4 stories that they're looking up.
Yeah. No, we can. Yeah, that's my goal this evening. When I get done, when everybody gets done talking, I want to go through each one of you individually, and I want you to tell me those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to offer your comments? Barbara. Come on up. Barbara.
I'm a dummy. I mean, I'm not smart at all. But why are we even talking about and considering more houses, more people, more cars, more congestion? I don't get it. No answer?
Well, we have,
I mean-
plain and simple is we have a property owner that wants to sell his property, and we have somebody that wants to buy it and develop it. So we're going through the process. So we're trying to figure out what the public would like to see there, what the village board would like to see there. And so that's why we're going through these steps.
Okay.
So, you know, we have to go through the process. I have duly noted your concerns right here.
And two, nothing's been approved or is going to be approved tonight. This is a concept plan just to get feedback from the residents and the village board.
All right, George, fire it up.
How close to the existing lot line?
Could you come up to the?
How close? George Ritter again. How close to the existing lot lines in school can they build? School Street, okay.
School Street?
On School Street.
Okay.
How, and we got a lot line, everybody got fences. How close to the lot line can they build?
Brian, do you know what the setbacks are on
Zoning
that?
distance?
Yeah,
Or?
I think Brian can answer that better than I could.
George, you're asking for the side lot line on the west behind your property, correct?
We're right here. Right here.
Sure. From a buffer yard setback or setback requirement, the underlying zoning district, depending what the property is rezoned to, would be the same as what the residential district is. So what your property is required to have is a 40-foot setback from that rear property line. They would be required to have another 40-foot setback on their side line.
Brian, is there any difference between the business zoning? I mean, the setback you described there sound the same, but if there was a residential zoning, are all the setbacks the same for?
No, every district has different requirements, so it varies from zoning district to zoning district. Generally, all of our zoning districts, however, look at what the adjacent use is. So with this property, redeveloping this site, it would look at the adjacent zoning of the single-family homes, and it would, majority of our districts look at what that district requires for a setback and would require the same for this property. So with the answer on this property, the R2 district, which is the single-family homes in that area, have a 40-foot required rear yard setback. That would then be the requirement on the opposite side of that property line for any development next to it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the community? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Isabella Gorska. I live at 20 Daybreak Ridge Trail. There are a lot of younger people moving here, young professionals who are choosing Cary, Lake in the Hills, Crystal Lake as their new homes. It's safer neighborhoods, better school, lower property taxes. I moved here 2.5 years ago. I'm very happy here. And I think this is a really great opportunity to expand our downtown area. However, if that's not an option to improve our commercial space, adding retail, I think that the apartment buildings are not a great idea. I don't think people are moving here for apartment buildings. I think they're moving here for single-family homes and top notes. So I think apartment buildings are not the best. And also the last thing I would like to say is that I commute via Metro, and I think improving the access to the parking lot, adding another route into it would be beneficial as well.
Thank you. Final call, anybody else?
I defer to the deacon for a moment.
Okay.
I was upright.
Do we, Mike Boyce, 572 Alita, do we need to get involved with the zoning board about this issue?
You absolutely can participate in the zoning board process. You could, it'll be, your testimony will be taken in, the zoning board will listen to what you have to say, absolutely.
Right, but because this is not zoned residential, it's zoned commercial.
Right, it has to go through, he's doing his conceptual process now. He will have to go through the zoning board process. He's just trying to
Okay.
figure out if this
So
is
we'll
something.
be informed of that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Second comment is that I don't get involved with village business too much. But whoever's doing the website, okay, absolutely fantastic job. So I wanted to compliment you on that. I went to the website and did a little bit of digging. I came up with all this information well in advance, so I'd encourage people to use the website and get a lot more information that I was expecting to find. So I think it's a great job.
Do you get the Cary News Weekly, our weekly email blast on what's going on here?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, every Friday.
Yep. Sometimes it comes out twice a week if you're lucky.
Mayor,
Yes.
on that note, we have forms that you can fill out if you would like to get the weekly e-blast on the table. So,
Bill Rietveld at 551 Krenz again. Thank you, all of you, for, doing it this way, okay? Making sure that the public is informed, making sure, thank you for, letting us voice our opinions. One last comment. Something that you didn't put down that you mentioned was that it appears as though, and you mentioned association fees, it appears as though that this concept would be a self-sustained unit with a association and, townhouses, okay? Does that mean that the village is going to be, not plowing snow inside that unit or, inside that area? Some things that I think we should, consider as a board. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, final call. Final call for tonight. Anybody? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:46. We'll come back to the village board if Mr. Taylor can come back up to the mic. Maybe we can get some dialogue going from the village board. Trustee Coster, do you have anything to say?
This is just a suggestion that maybe he would be better served if we sort of pointed out a couple, I'm seeing less density apartments, traffic. Maybe if we had some sort of informal votes amongst the board that'll direct them instead of us all making a speech on what we think is good or not. And we could throw out, each board member could throw out a subject area. That's just a suggestion.
So we can't vote. We could get a consensus. It's just a thumbs up,
an
thumbs
informal
down.
poll, yes.
Just in terms of evaluating the plan, the board is advised to look at the multifamily buildings as multifamily generally. From what I understand, the size of the units and the occupancy of the units are identical. The design of the building is identical. And so you're advised to look at the buildings equivalently as multifamily. Does everyone understand?
I'm not sure what you mean, no.
so one bedroom, two bedroom,
So,
or?
like, whether or not the unit is a two-bedroom owned unit or a two-bedroom rented unit, there's a two-bedroom unit, and it has two-bedroom impacts
Got it.
on the community.
Okay. I understand. So you're saying don't distinguish between whether it's a rental or whether it's an owner occupied?
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody?
And just to clarify too, I've heard some comments about, it's currently zoned single family.
Right.
So just to put that out there, it's single family zoning right now.
I think what, again, would be helpful here for the developer is from the board members' perspectives, if there's things that you like in this plan, things that need to be improved, or if there's elements within this plan that you do not like, I mean, that direct feedback, and I'm talking direct, frank feedback, let's provide it to them.
I just have a question that Trustee Kraus asked. So it's zoned single family right now, but then I thought Brian said that it was business, so I'm just confused on that.
The current zoning for the property is R2 single family. Our comprehensive plan recommends that the property could be utilized for multifamily development. There are 3 different districts within our codes currently that allow for multifamily housing. The R3 district, the B1 district, and the B3R district are all zoning districts that allow for multifamily housing to be in there. So this property currently is zoned for single family as part of this development, going through the zoning process, so all the neighborhood would be notified of the public hearing for those processes. Part of that request would be to rezone the property to one of those districts. There, sure. The question is what the 3 zoning districts are that allow multifamily housing. There's the R3 multifamily housing district. There's the B1 downtown business district, which is what the commuter lot and downtown area is zoned as. And then the B3R district, which is a business district that does allow for residential uses as well.
Does that answer your question, Trustee Wenham?
Yep, thanks.
Do you want to start over here? Is what you like, don't like, what you like to see? Just kind of give him some feedback based on what the residents have stated, what your thoughts are. He's looking for some direct feedback so we can give him some information as to how to proceed.
I haven't really received any positive feedback from residents concerning this, which, is concerning in and of itself. But yeah, I think the density is way too high. I worry about the apartments and how many apartments you're offering it up. The traffic issues. Who knows what's going to happen if that road goes through with adding who's going to fund a stoplight possibly if the road study requires that. Flooding issues, it's too much in my opinion. And I think you heard that here tonight. And I appreciate everybody coming out and voicing their opinion and spending your time here tonight. But right now, that's where I'm at on it. So
Is your issue the apartments?
I think that, Cary could use some more apartments actually, but I'm not sure if this is the right usage of that. And I think you heard that tonight. 4-story.
In this area, on this piece of property, it's not the right location, or?
Well, maybe not.
I can't change that. That's why I'm trying to see.
A 4-story, pretty high dense apartment building is what you heard out here that most people are concerned about. So it's not about exactly what I think. I'm trying to weigh what everybody here is thinking and make my decision based on that. And I think you're doing a really good job of trying to communicate with the people, and I appreciate that. But this just seems very dense. I like Trustee McApine's point about detached, townhomes, and I think the term is actually called pocket homes. Is a sort of a new slang for a small home on a smaller parcel of land. I would be interested in seeing more of that and less density. So, since I'm going first, I maybe would like to circle back after everybody else here talks. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get as much in. I agree, circling. I understand that. I think what I was trying to get at is I think some of those things are items that we call give and take during this period, and I'm willing to do that. But then I get into certain issues like the apartments. So I think it's really important when we circle back to at least come to a conclusion as to where we are with that, because that is one of the threshold issues that we have to address. And if we can't get past that, then that's a threshold issue.
Exactly, and that was sort of my idea of taking a few mini votes here,
I understand.
because I'm trying to make it as less painful as possible on you and spare everybody a waste of time. So if that's your cutoff, and I was the trustee that asked you at the prior meeting what your minimum unit level was, and you couldn't answer it at that time, which was fine. But from this plan, it just seems extremely, honestly, it's almost double the units that I would think I could accept.
But I think that's one of the things you should tell me, as painful as it is, and maybe I don't like it, but I want to find out where each one of you are coming from and what I have to do to get your vote.
Right.
Because if I don't get the vote, we can go home and watch football or something.
Right.
Trustee McAlpine.
Well, I kind of gave you some feedback about where I'm at with some of those things. I think that I disagree with some people, only because if someone, I'd love to get people here that do ride the Metro, and you are going to see apartment or condos or whatever you want to say, the higher rise right by the railroad tracks, and people are flocking to them. I mean, I know I have a lot of young nieces and nephews that are buying them, that's just what they like. They have one car usually between two of them, and they walk to a lot of things. I would like to see some of those, I would like to see some changes, because I think that would decrease some of the density. I understand that you have to make sure that it's a sustainable project for you to be able to turn a profit, otherwise it's not worth your time either. And, appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten from the residents. Again, I'd like to see some of those things changed with regards to the single family, the townhouse detached, looking at doing some of those, abutting to the other properties. I'm going to throw this out. I think that maybe Trustee Cavelli had mentioned it last time. I don't know if you would consider this, and I know that a lot of people are going to go, no, I don't want any retail, but is it a possibility to lower some of the density in the furthest back by the Metro there, those units, and throw some retail at the bottom of it? Because as I said, when I even tried to snap some pictures that didn't turn out too good, but if you go down the train line, the Metro line, you see a lot of that where people have little, bistros or little retails right at the very bottom. It would cut off some of the density, but only if it's backed by nothing that would be back, abutting to any of the neighborhood, but more abutting to the Metro. I don't know if we kind of talked about, I think you brought that up, Kim brought that up the last time. I would think that there's ever going to be anything like that, and I don't know if that changes the dynamics of the product, that maybe you could say, hey, I could do less density if I had something like that, but that's the only place you could see it where would not be anything affecting any of the direct neighborhoods, and would just go straight there, where people are coming on and off trains and just enjoying some of those perks down there. But I love the fact that you did leave some nice a couple of acres there. I think that's really important. I think that's great that everyone that's on Krenz Avenue is not looking directly onto that they're having a park right out there. And if that's done properly, that could be a nice gathering space for everyone and for the kids. But I think it's a great start.
Okay.
But I'd like to see it stepped up a notch.
Yeah, now, what is your attitude, assuming I put some of the retail where those apartment units are, at least on that first floor?
Right.
Back there, because I think if there's a market for it, listen, I'm a developer, it's easy.
Right.
If there's a market for it, I'll do it. And I think if, under the right set of circumstances, part of the problem is we got to determine when that road is going to be routed
Correct.
through there. And if that road was there today, I could make a decision on it, and I'd say you're dead on.
Right, right.
So I hear you, and that's something I don't disagree with.
There's a
I
lot
don't
of
disagree with
unknowns.
anything you've said.
There's a lot of unknowns, and we certainly want to have a project that is, again, the main thing is to help. We don't want to hurt or detract or lower property values in that area. We want to increase them and make it so that as this is developing, the reality is I think everyone has come to the conclusion that they know that this property is going to be developed. And as hard as a pill that is to swallow, I think our job, we're tasked with saying, how do we do it the most effectively?
Okay. I understand.
Kraus, any comments?
One of the issues I brought up last time was the open space, and I think this would be a Brian question. Who does that land get deeded back to?
That would be through the development. Whether it remains as part of the development or gets deeded to the park district, that would be part of any development approval, so it would be a condition of approval.
So that would be the only two choices, not back to the village?
Certainly can be something that could be explored as well.
Because one of the things I'd asked for was I'd actually asked Jacob to arrange a tour of the building for me, but I was told that it was unsafe to be inside of the building. Is there any possibility to have a tour of the gymnasium? I see there's a pond there for the gymnasium. So no possibility of a tour? Thank you. That's it. I made it clear where I stand.
I like the density part. I do not like the density part. I like the 3 apartment complexes on the railroad, but I would like to see the other 2 taken away to make a small town feeling, and to put townhomes where both of those apartment buildings are right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's pretty much, I like the park, and I like the idea that to keep the smaller townhome by the existing homes right now, and then to
Okay.
go up. Yes, that's it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Trustee Whitehammer?
So I'm not in favor of this much high density. I know I asked before if you could build single-family homes there. You said it wasn't feasible. I'm just not in favor of this high of density, period. So it's just way too much.
What kind of density would you,
I'm going to revert.
if I was looking
I know
for your
it's not
vote,
feasible.
what would you want me to?
No. I would, it's not feasible for you, but I would like to see single-family homes to keep it zoned as single-family. I'm not interested as having
Anything but
apartments.
single family?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's it. Okay.
Trustee Cabelli?
I think it's way too dense for me. You know, Mary, when she first came up here, she brought up a good point. I mean, I think all of us want this tax burden away from the school district. I think that's important, but I'm not willing to just settle either. So for me, this is just way too dense. I did bring up retail. I guess, you know, I like certain downtowns where you can kind of stroll around the downtown area. You can pick and choose places to maybe eat, to go walk into. I like downtowns like that, so I would like to see retail there. You know, maybe like Trustee McAlpine said, along the side, this building over here where it's not directly with the houses, but closer to the parking lot area, depending again on the road, what you mentioned. And then in the open space area there, I would envision a nice park, like not just an open space, but an actual park as well. So that's kind of what I was looking at as you were going through all this stuff.
What is your definition of, when you said density? I understand 300, whatever I said, 328 is too much. What would you consider a reasonable density on the property?
I told Jacob that long time ago.
I mean, I guess when you first presented it to us, I was only picturing the three along, like Trustee Betts said, the three along Route 14. I was surprised to see the two added in there as well. I think with 4 stories high, it's a lot of people in a little area. And I
So
do have concerns.
are you
with
against
about the
apartments?
school
Is that what?
district and the services, or the burden it would create on the services. I think those are good valid points that I would like more information on.
Are you against the apartments? I mean,
I don't like this plan. That's what I can tell you. I don't like this plan. I think it's way too dense. Am I necessarily
understand
against
that.
apartments? Not necessarily,
Pardon?
but I don't like this plan at all.
okay. Okay.
Would you consider, instead of apartments, making those condos owner occupied? Even if it's 3 stories high, I mean, or something like that? I mean, wouldn't you have a better return on your investment if you had that, or? I don't know the answer to that, so I'm just
Well,
throwing it out there.
I'm getting a kind of a lot of mixed signals
I know.
here, and I'm trying to separate. Usually everybody basically will tell somebody, and I guess I'm going to look to the mayor to say, as a group, what did you tell me?
Well, we have a mixed bag, and just, well, let's just justify, I mean, everybody's got a different opinion. This is, you know,
Yeah.
like I tell people all the time, we have one shot to get this right.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that it's done, that once you come to the fact and you realize that the property is going to be developed, that the property owner wants to sell it, we have somebody that wants to buy it, and then you got to figure out that process. But you got to figure out what's the highest and best use for our community. And it's a charming area that it's abutting. It's right next to our downtown. So we have really one good opportunity. If you're asking my opinion, I like the 3 apartment buildings along, or the buildings along the railroad tracks. I see it works up and down the train tracks. I take the train a lot, and you see it working in all the different communities from here all the way downtown. I think that it works. I do have some concerns at the housing number, the density. It's, you know, that's something that we hear over and over again. But contrary to what other people have said, I get approached all the time about people that want to have luxury apartments here. I have a lot of seniors that they want like a condo, or they want, you know, really upscale housing close to downtown so they can hop on the train. I would prefer to, you know, you would mention something about market rate. And I think before we had kind of talked about, you know, making these more luxury, something that's more of an upscale thing, because I think that's what our community wants. And I think that's what our community is looking for. I think we can pull this off. We have and we will. But my concern is looking at, I'd like to see a little bit more of the detached, how that will look and how that will affect. I hear this over and over again. People want single floor living. I have a ton of seniors that ask me all the time. They want just a small ranch, small piece of property that they can call their own. They live in these big homes and they're ready to downsize, but they don't want to leave Cary. I don't want them to leave Cary. So there's really nowhere for them to go. So with that in mind, looking at some of these opportunities that we have here, on a positive note, I do love the park. I think the park is much bigger than I was anticipating, so I give you that. Some of the little details in here are good. I do have some concerns with the number of the 4-story buildings. I would really think that the board, from what I'm hearing, if we could get a little bit of a drill down more on your density, your projections. I was a little bit more comforted when, instead of just chopping things down, if you were to move things from a detached townhouse to a detached townhouse, that could create a bigger opportunity for you to keep that. I know I'm in business too. You only want to do something if you're going to make this work. So I think that it's important that I think you've got some great information that some of the residents have talked about from the board. I'd like to see what you can come up with some of the feedback that we have here.
Okay.
I like the idea of the retail on the first floor on one of the buildings that may be close to the Metro tracks. The one building that's there, the 4-story building that abuts the single-family homes right there, that's the only building that's that high that abuts single-family homes. And that's a concern that was brought up here too. So if that could be kind of juggled around and, once we get to the next step and we can get a plan, I heard over and over again about the water issues. And I've heard that for years that there was water issues before. And we want to make sure that these things are all considered. But, this is a step. I mean, it's our first look at these things. I think that, people have some decent feedback here. You have got some concerns about things. I'd love that it could all be owner occupied. You tell us if that's something that could be done. Because I think that that's something that we could do. If it's owner occupied, I think that we could get that done, as a community. So that's my 2 cents on the deal. But I think that, would you like, Trustee Castle, would you like to see?
I appreciate your offering, but I'm good. Thanks.
So you're not good with this at all? Would you like to see a reduction in density?
I guess one question I still had is if this is sort of the layout, but it's adjusted still, then there will be no road from the commuter lot connecting? Is that the idea? Or would there still, in the future, be a road down the tracks to?
Staff has informed the developer that we would like to see the road connect to the commuter parking lot, Cary-Algonquin Road.
Okay, so the road would be right behind all these units, right?
Either behind or in the front, but I assume behind, yes, correct.
All right. Yeah, I'm not in favor.
You're not in favor of moving forward with this? Or
No, I'm not in favor of this proposal.
Okay.
So
So you'd like to see a reduction in the density?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Trustee McAlpine?
Yeah, I'd like to see, I think the density is a little bit higher than anyone anticipated, and I guess I'd like for you to go back and see if there's a way to make it less dense and more owner occupied, and throw in some other things that meet the needs of everyone.
Unchanged?
But when we say less dense, are we open to multifamily units out there?
I am open to some multifamily units. I don't know that we need, I think this is too much. But I think that some would be fine, but I think that that's a 250 multifamily is a lot higher than I would have anticipated. I would think more like half of that. I'm not saying that that's workable, I don't know, but again, if you throw in a lot more owner occupied, that might wind up being more workable for you, and then it throws in some senior housing, because if you have, condos on one floor, that's a walk-in thing that could, meet a need that we have here.
So, just to clarify, your concern is on the number of units in the multifamily housing?
Yes.
So there's 250 units in the buildings.
Correct.
When you say convert to owner occupied, you mean converting to a different housing type, like the townhomes?
No, it'd still be multifamily, it could be, it could be,
Because the number of units is the number of units.
I understand, but I think if you drop down, I would want to drop down the number of units in addition to making it owner occupied. So kind of both, because I think that you're going to perhaps be able to return and, have a return on your investment if you're selling versus renting, that maybe it would still be workable to do that.
What I didn't get into, and I might not have conveyed properly, was if you take a look at that plan, what I did is the 3 units that back up to the railroad tracks, I said would be rentals. Even though they're multifamily, In addition to that, I had 2 buildings of condos for sale. Those were for sale units. So there's 150, that's my guess today, 150 rentals, and there were 100 condominiums for sale. Made up that 250.
I just think it seems like it seems pretty high for that, for this parcel, to have that many.
Even for the for sale unit. So I basically, what I'm doing is, it just so happens, as your attorney explained, that's multifamily. There's 2 things that are in that same
Right,
category.
I understand where you're saying multifamily, don't look at rental versus owner occupied,
Yeah.
just look at the number of
Yeah.
units. I'm saying the
150
number
those
of
are
units
rentals,
is too high.
100 of them are owner occupied, of
Right.
the 250.
Right, and I'm just saying, in my humble opinion, it appears to me that 250 multifamily is too high for that property.
Okay. And I guess what I'm saying is, would it be, I'm trying to get, so I understand, if I basically miraculously just all of a sudden said, okay, we're not going to have any for sale condos, and I was going to have 150 apartments, and the rest of them were going to be hypothetically townhouses, what would your reaction be to that? I'm trying to understand what.
So you were saying that the count would go down, or the?
There would be 150 apartments, the 3 buildings that back up to the tracks, those are rentals. And I got rid of, for whatever reason, didn't go ahead with the for sale condominiums, which are considered multifamily.
Right,
And
I
I
understand.
converted those to a townhouse or some residential use, other residential use. Does that get close to what you're looking for?
It decreases the density, yes.
Yeah, it'd be, so I don't know, instead of the apartments or condominiums, which are 100 units, I don't know how many townhouses would replace it, but it would be less. I'm just trying to understand.
I'd like to see it, the majority of it being more like, a single family, a townhouse, detached
Okay.
townhouse. I would rather see
All right.
that, more of that, where you said you could make them a little bit bigger and maybe make a little bit more money, and therefore it works. I'd rather see the majority of the project like
I
that.
wish the rest worked that way. It just so happens that the detaching them, it does work,
I understand.
in my opinion. I mean, I've been wrong before.
Okay.
I think it might be helpful to see a couple of different proposals put out there that would address some of the concerns that you're having in terms of, would we rather have this or would we rather have that? Show us the road going out the back with one of the proposals, things like that. I think that would make it a lot easier for us to kind of conceptualize it, visualize it in our heads and see it. And then
And I
we'll
could
give it
do
a
that.
thumbs up or a
The
thumbs
only
down.
thing is, there's a certain number of apartments that if I don't have, I can't economically make it work.
Do you know what that number is, or you don't know?
Well, I was just gonna, I don't know, but I was using 150 as an example, where I got rid of the 100 condominium units and converted those to townhouses.
Okay.
I was throwing something out. I just wanted to see how you kind of reacted to it. Because
Yeah,
if I can't
I
do at least
understand.
that, then it's easy for me to, I know what I'm doing.
Sure, sure.
I can't do it. And that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to get a reading on.
Do you want a different site with less density, and that, would you be interested in seeing a revision of this?
I really like what Trustee Kraus just said. A couple of proposals I think would help just get the vision of what we're looking at,
agree.
as opposed to just discussing this conceptually and trying to picture what we're talking about.
What's that?
Just more, you're still no? Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think that the consensus that I'm getting from the board is that they would like to see a reduction in density. They would like to see a couple different options that you could propose that, you have to do what you think is right for the math, for you. We have to do what's right for our community. So if we can kind of marry those things together, that might help us all. But I'm concerned about how we're going to get that road in there. I think that road needs to be, that's been identified for a road for many, many years, and I think that it's something that needs to be looked at. So having that incorporated into that as well would give us a little bit more of a clear vision. But, I think this is it's a start. I think that, I'd like to kind of see what from the information that you've got from our residents, the information that you got from the board, if you can come back with something that could be sustainable for the village of Cary.
Okay,
Do you have all the information that you think you need to make that happen?
I think so. I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, stop and talk to me for 2 minutes, so I understand.